in the studio, I have Mark from Gasser Chairs. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
So why don't you share with our viewers a little bit of history about maybe your family, you personally, and where the company's come from?
Sure, be glad to. The company started in 1946 by my father and two of his brothers, who were pretty young at the time. My dad was just out of high school, and my uncle was a car mechanic, and he was just a fellow that would figure things out. And my dad was more on the sales and administrative side, and they actually started fabricating aluminum. This is right after World War II, so metals were more readily available than they had been for years, and aluminum was still a relatively new material. They started fabricating aluminum for storefront windows, anything made from aluminum. They developed some expertise in welding, so they welded some beer kegs. They repaired some beer kegs for local distributors. They built some prototype aircraft parts out of aluminum.
No kidding.
Anything that was aluminum, they were up for. They didn't have a lot of resources, and so they were pretty inventive. My uncle was a tool and die maker by trade, and when they needed something, he would literally go to the local scrapyard and pick through the machinery and equipment that the big guys in town, commercial shearing and the sheet and tube companies would throw away, and buy them for scrap value and then make something out of them, including our first punch press, our first lathe, a lot of things that were just made from literally parts and pieces. And that's where we developed from and became a manufacturer. How they settled on chairs, I honestly can't tell you. Other than I think that at the time, General Fireproofing, which made office furniture in town, was an influence because they were working in aluminum for office furniture. And my forefathers chose to go down the hospitality side and make aluminum chairs for restaurants, which weren't very common at all at that time. So they were lightweight, they were rust resistant, and my dad started going to trade shows, particularly the National Restaurant Association, which we always refer to as the NRA show, and people think, why are you going to the Rifle Association? No, it's the Restaurant Association. And literally loaded some chairs in the back of his car, drove to Chicago, where the show has always been, came home with a couple of orders, and then they figured out how to build them. That is,
that's so cool.
Where do we get the materials? So started making furniture for restaurants and hotels, and developed a line of stackable chairs that's used in the ballrooms. And ballrooms were getting larger and larger. You know, most of them back then maybe sat 200 or 300, and then with the 500, and now it's up in the thousands. But so we've developed our reputation in the markets by going to trade shows, meeting people in the industry, finding out what their needs were, and filling those needs. So that is also the way that we became involved in supplying furniture for the casino industry, was, again, going to trade shows. And at the same time, the restaurants were flourishing. You know, Holiday Inns were being built everywhere. And so we were just fortunate to be on that wave of expansion and growth after World War II and through the 60s and 70s. And as the casino industry, the gaming industry as we refer to it, was expanding, when riverboat gaming became popular and then Native American gaming, we participate in all of those market segments. And everything that we do is built to order. We don't have any stock. We don't supply to retail stores. So we go out and we work with customers who are building a new project or remodeling an existing one, and see if there's something we can do to help them meet their goals.
And when did you personally get involved in the company? How young did you get started?
You know, I'm one of 8 children, and so I think it was my dad's way of giving my mom a break. He would take me to the plant every time he went there, and I literally just grew up in the plant. I loved making things. I enjoyed the tool and die side of things, the engineering side, and I would kind of follow my uncle around, and he'd always give me the jobs that nobody else wanted to do, and I was happy to have them. And so that was back in the mid-'70s when I became involved in the late 70s when my dad asked me if I would go to Seattle and set up a warehouse and distribution center for our product. which sounded really exciting. I didn't know where Seattle was at the time, but literally gave me the keys to the truck, and I drove the truck to Seattle,
Interesting.
set up the warehouse, and that's why I started to get involved in sales, because I was working with our sales reps directly and with our distributors at the time, and it was just a great learning experience. And so we've been doing trade shows for a very long time, and we do probably about 15 a year now, some of them smaller than others. But that's where we go out and we make our contacts.
So now do we have another generation that's coming after this one that are all ready to take over the baton handoff?
Well, we are working on that.
Okay.
My eldest daughter just joined the company. She was in California for 10 years, and I have several nephews that are involved in the company. So, yeah, I think we're pretty good situated for the
good.
future.
We'd love to see you stay here in the Valley. That is for sure.
I got to tell you that over the years, I've looked at many opportunities. I've made several trips to China, to Mexico. That doesn't fit with what we do in the ability to customize our product and make it very personal to our customers.
All right, let's get to our tour here.
Well, what we're looking at here is our corporate office right now, which was for many years the site of all of our manufacturing. It was the site of the original barn that the company started in, and we just grew organically. When we could afford it, we added on, and we've always been fiscally conservative, and we just realized that cash is important, and make sure you don't run out of it.
That's for sure.
We're pretty vertically integrated, and that was a result of necessity in the early days, but we bring in raw materials in one end of the plant, and then we process it, and at the other end, we ship out a finished product. For many years, the only thing that had to leave the facility was our metal components to get finished, whether it was anodized on the aluminum or powder-coated or electroplated. And it was interesting, during the financial crisis of 08 and 09, we had some time on our hands to reassess some things, and we ended up putting in our own powder coat line, which you'll see later in this video, so that now our metal components didn't need to leave the facility. We brought in raw steel or aluminum. We would fabricate it, punch it, bend it, whatever we needed to do, weld it, and now it goes from there right to our in-house powder coat line and then flows further down the production line. All of our wood products, we bring in raw material. We don't make our own plywood, but we buy it to our specifications. We process it. We see here a CNC router cutting out and drilling the holes in some seat boards, and then the fasteners being installed. So we control the processes pretty much from the start to the end.
Yeah, I can imagine the wood shop looking different before they had these automations, too.
It's a lot of bandsaws.
I bet.
Yeah.
This episode was brought to you by Youngstown Computer, the Valley's technology company. We appreciate the loyalty you all have shown to us over the years, and it's our promise to serve all of the technology needs of the Valley. Call 330-259-7278. We have both home and business services available, everything from repair, installations, and new equipment. You can improve your Wi-Fi and have your technology serve you better. Call 330-259-7278, or you can schedule your appointment right now on youngstowncomputer.com and look for the red Book Now button.
And like any hand operation, you're at the mercy of the operator. Does he cut in the middle of the line, on the center, on the right or the left? But with the automation comes the need to be able to service and maintain the equipment, because even though it's robotic, it can get out of sync as well. The one thing that we struggle with is, because we're often working with a variety of different upholstery materials, is the more variables you can take out of every component, the better a fit you can get at the tail end of the production. And so going to CNC equipment has certainly helped with that. We still have the ability to do it by hand if we need to, and sometimes you're forced into that by the restrictions of the machinery or the availability of the time on the machine. So as part of our vertical integration, we extrude our own vinyl trim. So this is an extrusion machine we're looking at where it takes vinyl pellets, melts it, and then runs through a die, and that's what you're seeing here come out of this machine is actually a trim that goes around the perimeter of our chairs. It goes through, it's sort of like extruding pasta. You push it through there, and it goes through a water bath to cool it down and to size it, gets cut to length, and then gets applied to the chair. We do this in a wide variety of colors, and we do custom colors when the customer requires it. So again, it gives us that control, and one of the things that sets it apart from our competitors is our ability and our willingness to do that. So that's the trim being applied to the seat board of a chair. We try to source our materials locally whenever possible, and local sometimes is within a day's drive of the area. The aluminum extrusions we're looking at here, many of them are made here locally in town. Sometimes due to machine limitations or process limitations, we have to go outside of the area, but we know where to go when we need them.
And it looks like you can some warehouse a significant amount of stuff here too.
Yes, and in theory, everything on the shop floor is marked for a job, but in reality, oftentimes, for example, aluminum extrusions, you can't buy exactly what you need. You've got to buy a minimum order or a close proximity. But so yeah, there is a lot of material handling involved. Our main production plant is 100,000 square foot with another 70,000 next door, and then we have some local warehouses. Because there is one of the things about our product is as we process it, it gets bigger. You start with a stick of aluminum. By the time you bend it, put a seat on it back, it grows. And at the shipping end, we don't have a lot of holding space, so our scheduling has to be pretty accurate so we can, the day it's completed, it goes on a truck, gets delivered to the customer. This is some of our metal fabricating. Actually, the machine here is bending a footrest for a bar stool. Again, our first bending machine, this is one here is pretty automated, but our first one was made from literally scrap metal, and we ran it for years, bent thousands of chair legs on it, and we still have it in the plant as a demonstration and a reminder of where we came from.
Right. So cool.
So this machine is welding the two ends of that footrest together with a resistance welder. Then that weld will need to be dressed down before it's powder coated. He's punching the holes now for the assembly portion of the stool frame. He's dressing the weld down. There's always flashing around the weld that needs to be dressed off. This is actually one of the operations. While we don't do it every day, all day, it is one that we're looking at automating through the use of some robotic arms. So a lot of fabricating, these punching holes in a handle that goes on the back of a chair. Some of our tooling we build in-house, some we use local machine shops help with, depending on the complexity of the part or the project. So this is an operation where I think it's 8 different handles are in the fixture there, and the machine will process them based on the programming that's been done.
Is that doing cutting?
Yes.
Okay.
It is cutting the metal and shaping the part.
Okay.
I often describe our operation as 5 or 6 small companies inside of one because of the disciplines are so different, whether it's fabricating wood, aluminum, steel, castings, welding, the powder coating. You'll see here later that we also pour our own foam cushions in-house. And that we were led into that based on the fact that shipping foam is very expensive because it's like shipping feathers. There's no weight, just a lot of space. And so, plus we can do it more of a just-in-time manufacturing. Instead of buying 2,000 seat cushions, we'll make them over a 2 or 3 week period of time as we're building the product. The foam operation was one where we were buying it from a company in Wisconsin. It was just getting so costly to ship foam from so far away. And part of it is building the confidence to tackle a new technology and learn it well enough to do a good job. It's one of our robotic welders we're looking at here, where once the fixtures are made, if it's a product you have enough volume of, it makes sense to invest in fixturing for robotics because they have to be rather precise. But we still do a fair amount of hand welding based on low volume items or something that's more intricate. So all of these operations we're seeing here today take place in our two facilities on Logan Avenue in Youngstown. It's the former General Fireproofing facilities that when they left town and closed, we had purchased the two newest buildings in their facility and did a lot of renovation. They were in pretty sad shape at that time. They had been vacant for quite a while. But again, did it gradually as we could afford it. And it teaches you learn to appreciate things when you do them that way.
This episode was brought to you by Youngstown Computer, the Valley's technology company. We appreciate the loyalty you all have shown to us over the years, and it's our promise to serve all of the technology needs of the Valley. Call 330-259-7278. We have both home and business services available, everything from repair, installations, and new equipment. You can improve your Wi-Fi and have your technology serve you better. Call 330-259-7278, or you can schedule your appointment right now on youngstowncomputer.com and look for the red Book Now button.
This is part of our powder coat line where we're spraying a very environmentally friendly finish. There are no VOCs, nothing that's leaching into the air. It's literally dry paint. It adheres to the electrostatic forces, and then goes into a curing oven where the powder becomes a solid. So all the metal parts, whether they're steel or aluminum, go through the pre-treatment station in the powder coat line where they're sprayed with a degreaser, rinsed several times, and then etched to create a surface where the powder will stick and get a very good bond. It goes through a dry-off oven, then the powder's applied, and then goes through a curing oven where it's baked at 350 degrees for about 15 minutes, depending on the particular powder. Sometimes we're applying a second clear coat, depending on the specifications. What we're seeing here are some chair legs for stacking chairs, so right and the left. You can see the oven in the background. They're going in for curing at this point. This is our foam molding operation where we take the two components that make a foam cushion and blend them together, pour them into a mold. You close the mold, and then it cures in there. So every part has its own mold. I had mentioned earlier the variety of different upholstery materials that we are utilizing. Again, largely driven by our customers' desire. A lot of vinyl, a lot of faux leathers, a fair amount of genuine leather, and of course a lot of decorative fabrics, all commercial grade.
Now, has everything we've seen up to this point been in the same building?
Yes.
Wow.
Other than the wood was in a separate building next door to what we've seen here, but yeah, it's
that's
all
a lot of stuff.
a lot of things going on. And whenever we can get a customer to come in and visit us, they're always blown away by what it takes to make a chair start to finish.
Right.
This is Rick Williams, our safety coordinator, and we've always had a strong safety culture. I can remember as a kid, my uncle was just adamant about safety in the plant, and there's just so many opportunities to get hurt if you're not safety conscious. Again, our foam molding department, we have 3 foam molding machines. We have a little more capacity than what we're utilizing right now, but we expect that's going to grow, so we're prepared for it. And you can see some of these are aluminum molds that the foam compound is poured into. It looks kind of like pancake batter or maybe waffle batter. You close the mold after the foam is applied, and it's a certain amount of each component that determines the firmness of the cushion. So every part has its own recipe.
Now, how many employees are out in the manufacturing floor?
There's about 75 in manufacturing. So all those molds are on a large rotary table so that once he pours it, he closes the mold, the table rotates. By the time it gets back around to him, the cushion's ready to come out. So all the lines you see going into those molds are hot water that helps the curing process. Some of the finished product there. You'll see some of these being upholstered and going through the production line here later in the video.
Just comes out of there right away,
Mm-hmm.
ready to use.
Yeah.
That's cool.
This is our fabric cutting department as well as adjacent to the sewing department. Most of the fabrics are all cut on CNC equipment. We have both single-ply and multiply cutting machines, depending on the size of the order and maybe the type of fabric it is. We determine which is the best way. We still do some hand cutting when it's necessary, but most all of it is automated. Even the leather hides these days, they lay it out on a table, they circle any flaws in the hide, photograph the hide, and then take that image into a nesting software to determine what parts to cut from what part of the hide. So it really helps with the utilization of the material. So most of our products require sewing. They're all industrial sewing machines. It's sort of like hand tailoring a suit, only you're tailoring it from leather or vinyl. There's a lot of intricacies in the patterns. So what we see here are some backrests for some chairs. They're applying the trim that we saw being extruded earlier. So it's a vinyl trim that goes around the perimeter of the chair, which was something that my father invented. Actually, we held a patent on this. And it goes around the perimeter of the chair to protect it because that's where the chair gets all the handling. That's where in the hotel ballroom is where they pick the chair up and your guests move it. So having that solid vinyl trim around the perimeter really helps the longevity of the product. I'd mentioned earlier that we do a lot of seating for the gaming industry, and these are some chairs that we're making for the Wynn Casino in Las Vegas. While Las Vegas is the hub of the gaming industry, there's lots of gaming outside of Las Vegas. Many, many states have legalized casino gambling, and we've been fortunate to have grown along with that. I'm always impressed at how easy these folks make this process look. And having done a lot of upholstery, I can tell you that it's not easy, but it's such a vital part of our process, and we're constantly training new people because it's just something that is not a skill that's common in our area. So it takes a while to learn that. And it's not for everyone. I mean, manufacturing in general is not for everyone. But those people who like to work with their hand and have good eye-hand coordination, there's a place for them here.
Absolutely. Now, does most of your stuff you get assembled to a point so it's easier to ship, and then they're fully assembled once they get there, or how do you handle that?
Almost everything we make is fully assembled when it leaves our plant. Most of our customers don't have the expertise to even do the simple assembly or the interest in doing it, particularly on major projects. I mean, furniture is just one aspect of a new construction or a renovation. I mentioned that a lot of our business is outside of this area, but there are many, many local restaurants and venues that have purchased our furniture and still use it today. Places like Leo's in Warren, Mr. Anthony's, the Waypoint, even some small places like Yankee Kitchen Restaurant in Vienna have used our product for years.
Is that a swivel of some kind?
It is the base assembly for a slot stool.
Okay.
It's going to the Wynn Casino.
Nice.
So there's the finished product there going through final inspection.
That's recognizable. I've seen those before.
Yeah. So besides the casino furniture, I mentioned we do a lot of function room furniture. The chair that we saw next to that slot stool was going to Edwards Air Force Base in California, again in a military club where they have meeting facilities. It's been a part of our business for many years. And our order sizes can range from 10 to 20 to, in this case, the win is 2,000 stools. We've had some very large orders in the past, and we're careful about those because we don't want to shut down our production for one job for a period of time. A few years ago, we had the opportunity to bid on a very large order for, actually, it was one of the Oklahoma tribes, the Chickasaw tribe. It was 18,000 stools. Well, we won the business partly because they came back and toured our facility and then did the same for our competitors and realized the difference between a manufacturer and someone who assembles products. But in that case, they agreed to accept the furniture, 1,000 stools a month for 18 months, so I didn't have to shut down production for 2 or 3 months for one job. And so we always try to do that when we have large orders, is space them out so that we can take care of other customers at the same time.
Now, what is the kind of volume, if you had those chairs like you were doing for that casino, how many chairs could you push through there per day or week or whatever?
You know, depending on the model and complexity, some of the stackable chairs like that, we could do 300, 400, 500 a day. On the larger, more complex ones, it's more like 200 a day.
Okay. Yeah, so 18,000 would have kept you at a crawl for a little while.
So we've had a couple of large orders like that, and again, you have to do it strategically so that you're not impacting all of your other customers. So a lot of our products are shipped what we call floor-loaded blanket wrapped, where there's no cartons. Again, we try to encourage that, and in most cases, customers are receptive of that idea because they don't have to worry about disposal of packing materials on the other end. But it does take more time to load it that way, and you have to be careful so that you don't end up with damage on the other end. Our product, we've always offered a 10-year warranty in commercial use, so we take it seriously, and we've become known for that.
Well, I'm really glad that you're in the area. I hope you guys are around for generations even to come. I wish you a lot of success. How do people get a hold of you if they've got, an enterprise they want to throw some furniture in? You got a sales department, website, anything like that? So
on our website at gasserchair.com is probably the easiest way. We certainly, our phone number is listed 330-759-2234. Just about any social media platform we're available on.
All right. Mark, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it, man.
All right, Joe, you're very welcome. Thank you for inviting us.
Absolutely.
Okay.